All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going through a series of video presentations for the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Web Development 1111.NET Framework with Web Databases class. In particular, I'm now going through the 11 article tutorial on getting started with ASP.NET MVC5. I'm about to start lesson 8 of 11, so I've gone through getting started, adding a controller, adding a view, adding a model, creating a connection string and working with SQL Server Local DB, accessing your model's data from a controller, examining the edit methods and view. So I'm up to adding search right here. And as they mention here, in this section we'll add search capability to the index action that allows us to search for a movie by either its genre or its name. So we're told here to start by updating the action method of the existing movies controller class. I'm just going to go grab the entire thing here, copy it to the clipboard, go to my movies controller. In fact, that's open. I'm going to close a few things here just because I have so much stuff open right now. It can be a little bit confusing. All right, so there's my movie controller. And what I want to do is I want to come back to the index method, which currently looks like this. Okay. And I want to change it to this. Now, the first thing to realize right here is what we're using there is LINQ. LINQ is an acronym, sort of, for line item query. All right? And LINQ is pretty much, as far as I know, it is a Microsoft invention. It allows you to use what's very similar to an inverted, kind of a backwards SQL structure. So you might say, well, why don't we just use SQL? SQL is only designed to work with databases. LINQ will work with any kind of collection. You can use LINQ with an array, with a CSV file, with all sorts of stuff that is not work, I don't believe at all, with regular SQL. So this first line again creates a LINQ query to select the movies. Now if you want more on LINQ, because I'm not the one to give it to you, but if you want more on LINQ, notice you can click there and you can get some information from msdn.microsoft.com, which is the Microsoft developer network. And you'll want to go to the, it's language integrated. I thought it was line integrated. Sorry. All right. You'll want the C# one, and that'll bring you to the page. All right. So it says the query is defined at this point, but has not yet been run against the database. In the search string parameter, so again, I can keep it here, or I can go back to here. All right? Might be easier just to stay here so I'm not constantly bopping back and forth. All right, so it says if the search string contains a string, the movies query is modified to filter on the value of the search string using this code. Now, this line right here, and this is one of those words you have to learn. It's a lambda expression. All right? Again, I clicked on the link here. I would actually recommend that if you get some time, take a look through this section. There is a really, really good chance that if you ever go and you apply for a programming job, that you will be asked about your experience with lambdas. Lambdas are used in many ways. In this case, what we're doing is we're using it inside of our link query as an argument, all right, to that where statement that's in there. Link queries are not executed when they are defined or when they are modified by calling a method such as where or order by. Rather, query execution is deferred. Sometimes this is even called lazy loading. In other words, it's not run until it's needed. So the evaluation of an expression is delayed until its realized value is actually iterated over the toList. So again, it's one of those things, again, that is more called or more looked at as being used in a runtime basis. For more information about deferred query execution, you can click that link. So they do an excellent, excellent job in here of going through this stuff. It says the contains method right there. That contains method is run on the database, not the C# code above. It maps to an SQL-like statement, which is case insensitive. It says now you can update the index view that will display the form to the user. Run the application. All right. And so let's try it. I haven't probably done this in a while, so I am going to do a save all, click off of there, and run the program. Hopefully what we get out of this by doing this right here is we are going to have some search capabilities. We'll see that in just a minute, whether or not we indeed do. But again, if you get some time, you may want to look at the link stuff that's in here. You may want to look at the lambda stuff that's in here. I can't make people do anything. I always love that when people go, do we have to? All right. You do whatever you want to or think you have to do. Now, once this comes up, and it's still running slow, but again, I've started to produce the last thing that I just created, which is probably what's slowing it down. What's going to happen here is we're going to navigate over to the movies index, and after we do that, we're going to append a query string on it and see if indeed it works. Now we're going to add a little bit and do it again. All right, so it's up. Let's iterate over to our movies index. And just so you know, I've got a capital M. It should work. This should be case insensitive. Okay, that should work just fine. Except for the fact that it's very slow. And I'm going to put a query string in under this, after this. Now, when I do this in class, I try to set it up so that I'm not doing a lot of this where I'm coming in here and producing while I'm working. So, all right, I'm going to come in here now, and I've got this. And after this, I'm going to put in question mark search string equal, they tell you to use ghost here. And notice we get just Ghostbusters. Now, I'm going to come in and create a new, and I'm going to put in here, I'm doing it, following it right out of the book, Ghostbusters 23, 1986, comedy, and 9.99. All right, so let's create. We should now have Ghostbusters. That should have been 84, so let's change that. It's kind of hard for Ghostbusters 2 to come out before Ghostbusters. That doesn't make a whole boatload of sense. So we're going to change this to 3/13/1984 and save. Says the release date is required. Well, that somehow got goofed up. 3/13. Why is it doing that? 13/1984. Save. All right, there we go. And I spelled Ghostbusters wrong. Ghostbusters 2. All right. 2/23/1986. Save. Hey, I think we're okay now. But now I'm going to run this one more time, and I'm going to put now my search string. I think this is case insensitive too. Equal ghost. Now it looks like it is not. I forgot the question mark. Don't want a slash, don't want a question mark. Search string equal ghost. And look what we have. We get Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. So if I change this from ghost, for example, to Bravo, there's Rio Bravo. I wonder if I could just put in like the letter O in here. And notice Rio Bravo, Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2 all have an O. When Harry Met Sally, there's no O in there. We put a T in, we should have When Harry Met Sally, but the Rio Bravo should be gone, and we should have Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. So if we put in there a T, there we go. Now again, this is a case insensitive search. All right. So even if I put a W in here in lowercase, it finds the W from When Harry Met Sally. All right. If you change the signature, let's jump back. Let's stop the run here. And that's what I keep doing. That is just stupid on my part. I don't know why I'm doing that. Yes, I'm going to restore my pages. Don't want that one. There we go. All right. Stop the run here, and let's go back to our handout. Okay. So the author says, run this, navigate over here. We just did that. All right, so I'm up to here. If you change the signature of the index method to have a parameter named ID, the ID parameter will match the ID of the default routes set in here. So our original index method looked like this, and our modified one, notice string search string, now we've got string ID, and instead of search string, we're saying ID equals search string. All right, why do we even care? Well, let's grab all of this, copy it to the clipboard, go back to our code, go back to our index here, paste that in, all right, save, run the program again. Now, when we ran this previously, we had to say question mark search string equals ghost or whatever. Now, when we run it, we should be able to just put after the index slash and what we're looking for. So it's much cleaner doing it this way. We're making the user do less work. Probably making the computer do less work too. I don't know. Again, I apologize for the slowness. The previous one still has about 40% to go on it, so. I'm not a hardware guy, but I'm sometimes wondering if I should see about having a virtual machine built, added onto this machine where I could maybe do my production work on another drive. I'm doing it on the E drive, but it still is way too slow. So when we did this before, we went over and we said movies, index. All right, that brought us over to our index page. You know, the index page for our movies controller. So you saw this previously. Okay. Previously, when we wanted to search, we said here index question mark search string equal ghost. I don't even know if that's going to work anymore. We may get an error with this. Just thinking about it. But the bottom line is, oops, I don't want that. The bottom line is when we did this, we were putting in this. Let's make that a little smaller. So we were putting in that. All right, it's still thinking about it. Now what we'll be able to do is instead of putting that in, we will put in this, which not only results in less typing, but it's cleaner looking. All right. One of the advantages that I found that you get when you're working with ASP.NET is you get cleaner looking URLs. All right. This didn't work evidently because it's not doing anything, but let's try it with /ghost. There we go. All right, so the old one didn't work anymore. Now, really excellent point here. Going back to our handout. Because the author says, I mean, let's be real here. You can't expect users to modify the URL every time they want to search for a movie. Imagine that this was, you know, a family video type of thing that had thousands of movies. That would be ridiculous. So now it says you'll add UI or user interface information to help them filter movies. If you change the signature of the index to test how to pass in that ID parameter, change it back so that it takes this again. So I need that line back again. So let's just bring that back. Copy that to the clipboard. Go back to our code. Change it back again. Okay, that's fine. It says open the views movies index.cs HTML file. So let's go there. Views. movies, and we want the index.cshtml file right here. All right. The author says just after the create new create, which is right here, just after that, all right, add the form markup highlighted below. Not sure where we're getting that underline, but I think it'll be fine. Okay, so I want to go right there. And oh, it already went away. So just below that create, add this. We'll come back and take a look at what that means in just a minute. All right, so I added that. And let's save before we do anything. So we'll look on here and see what this is. All right. The HTML begin form helper creates an opening form tag. Should make sense. It causes the form to post to itself when the user submits the form by clicking the filter button. Now they mention here, it says Visual Studio 2013 has a nice improvement when displaying and editing view files. All right. Well, I would imagine that since we're using 2015, it's going to do the same thing. So, the author says here, oops. The author says here, try it again. All right. With the index view open in Visual Studio, as it is right here, tap Control F5, so we will run this particular file. Control F5. Here it comes. You'll see what we added here, which is a label that says title, and underneath it a text box where we can search for a particular title. All right, so now we've got this. So now when I come in here and I type in ghost and click the filter button, it still works the same way. All right, and as always, if I put in an O in filter, I get Rio Bravo, Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, but not When Harry Met Sally. Now, one thing to note about this, and it's shown in our article here, there's no HTTP post overload of the index method. You don't need it because the method isn't changing the state of the application. It's only filtering data. So in other words, we are not making changes to Ghostbusters and all those other ones. We're just showing which films meet the criteria we're putting into the search text box. It says you could add this. In that case, the action invoker would match the post index, and the post index method would run as shown here. But as mentioned on page 9 of our handout, It says even if you add this HTTP post version of the index method, there's a limitation in how this has all been implemented. The solution they mention is to use an overload of begin form that specifies that the post request should add the search information. So it says replace the existing parameterless begin form with the following markup. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to look for begin form. It's right there. So we want to change this line and make it look like that. So in essence, that's saying that we always want to be able to use, I believe it's saying that we always want to be able to use that search box. All right, so let's save all, run, move over to our run page, which will be right there. Let me close that, good. This should hopefully start running a little faster now. All right, we're back here. Now what they're saying is we should be able to come in here and after movies, say question mark search string equal ghost. And you notice it works. But now we've got the edit and the details. When we did it the other way, let's see if we had it there. Index ghost. Oh, we have it there too. Well, this is not working now. We went back to making it work the other way. So it says here, I'm on page 10 of the handout. Now when you submit a search, the URL contains a search query string. Not the way I wrote it, but the way it was here. Searching will also go to the HTTP get index action method, even if you have a post. All right? All right. If you added a post version, delete it now. I did not do so. Because what we're going to get to right now is we want to be able to search not only by title, but by genre. So in other words, all comedies, all science fiction movies, all action movies, etc. All right? So, we're right here. Next, you'll add a feature to let users search for movies by genre. Replace the index method with the following code. Well, let's look at first at what else we're changing. We had this before. We had all this stuff. And that was checking our movie stuff. Now we're going to come in here and we're creating a list of genres. And we're telling it to basically do what? Well, select the genre from that list and order it by genre. All right, then we've got an add range, and we're again using the view bank. So let's put the code in, because I'm sure they'll explain it down here much better than I just did. So I'm going to come back to my index in my movies controller. I'm going to come back to my index, which is here, and I'm going to replace it with this. Again, making sure I do a save all. All right? So this version of the index method takes an additional parameter, namely movie genre. So there it is. The first few lines of code create a list object to hold movie genres from the database. The following code that you saw that's down below that, it's another link query that retrieves all of the genres from the database. It said this code uses the add range method to add all of the distinct genres to the list. What does that mean? In English, what it means is, imagine I had 500 comedies, 300 science fiction movies, etc. Rather than giving me 500 and 300, where I have 500 that say comedy and 300 that say science fiction, we're running the distinct command, which just says show us one comedy and show us one science fiction, which makes a heck of a lot more sense. All right? Because those are really two genres. We have 800 copies of those two genres, but it's just two genres. All right? So without the distinct modifier, duplicate genres would be added. The code then stores the list of genres in the viewbag.moviegenre. Storing category data such as a genre as a select list in a view bag, then accessing it via a drop-down list is typical for MVC apps. Now it is typical, but again, remember that there are certain restrictions on ViewBag. In other words, if we had 10,000 genres, we may not want to do it this way. All right. The following code, it says then, shows how to check the movie genre parameter. If it's not empty, the code further constrains it to limit the selected movies to the selected genre. So we're using a lambda here that says, hey, I only want you to show the genres where, so only show those movies where that genre is in the genre that we just, put in. All right? So, or we're about to put in. As stated previously, all right, as stated previously, this query is not run on the database until the movie list is iterated over. So it's done at runtime. All right? Okay. Adding markup to the index view to support search by genre. Add an HTML drop-down list helper just before the text box helper. So we want to add this line of code right here. Some of that looked a little funky when I did it. All right. So we want the movies index.cs HTML file. And right before we have our text box. Where the heck was that? Right there. We want to add this. So what we're doing right there is we're putting genre in, all right, and we're using a drop-down list instead of a text box because that information already exists. Okay? There's no sense in making the user key that in where they could easily make a mistake typing or whatever. The parameter that we have here, movie genre, provides the key for the drop-down list helper method to find that selected list item in the view bag. The parameter that's in there that says all provides an option label. We can also set an option to be selected by default if we wanted to do that. And they show you if you did want to do that, how you would come in and do something like this. Now, typically, would you want to do that? Well, let's suppose that I open up my own video store. And in my video store, 90% of the movies that I have in there are comedies and 10% is everything else. Then I may want to do something similar to what's shown here in blue. I may want to do that where I default it to comedy. All right? Okay. So it says run the application, and then let's go back to Movies Index. So let's go back to the application. Let's do a save all. Let's run it again, and we'll change back, and we'll wait for this to come up here. What we're doing, whether you realize this or not, is we are starting to be more restrictive with our search. And I will show you exactly what I mean in just a second. So there's genre all. Notice here, wow, that genre is wrong. That should have been comedy. All right. Okay, so there's our comedies. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do a genre all and filter. And I got to change that because that's wrong for the genre. So let's go back and change this genre right here to comedy. Now, when I go back, it resets this. So Ghostbusters was 3/13/1984. Save. Now I've got those. So notice now if I go to Western, first of all, it's down to 2. Doesn't have 1984 in there anymore. If I go to here and I filter, I have just Rio Bravo. But when I said that this gets more restrictive, notice if I change this, I'll change this back to all. All right, and I'm going to change it back again to Western. Now, I'm not going to click filter. I'm going to type in hello, and I'm going to click filter. And I get nothing because I don't have a Western that's called hello. All right, if I go back again, let's remove this, and let's change this to comedy and filter. Notice I get all 3. But if I change it to comedy, and I again put ghost in here, now it's only those comedies with the word ghost in the title. So When Harry Met Sally is now gone from here. So we learned in here, we created a search action method and a view that allowed the user to search by movie title first. Then we added genre. So now they'll be able to do it by one, the other, or both. So if I wanted to select everything in here, everything, all right, for the letter O. Notice I get all of these. But if I want to just select comedies for the letter O, I get those, and just westerns for the letter O, I get this. So that concludes part 8 of our 11-part presentation. I'm going to stop the run. I'm going to go back to the article. Oops. All right. And as it says, in the next section, we'll look at how to add a property to the movie model and how to add an initializer that will automatically create a test database. So that will be adding a new field right here. So I will be back with presentation 9 of 11, and I think this is one of the longest ones there is in here. So I'll be back with that shortly.